Hey guys, I realized I don't talk about Genesis much, so today we're going to be taking a look at a short video by Darwinian Delusions on Adam and Eve.
One of the most common questions that I get is, how can you believe in Adam and Eve? How can you believe that all human beings going back come from one single pair?
Yes, it's a very good question. Adam and Eve producing all of mankind is not consistent with what we know about science. Not to mention that this happened twice. Remember Noah's flood? Yep, the Bible contradicted biology not once, but twice.
As if this belief is as absurd as believing in the spaghetti monster.
Well, actually, we compare God to the spaghetti monster, not an idea of ancestry.
Well, the people posing this question, which are normally Darwinists, normally evolutionists, normally atheists, they actually believe something which is much more ridiculous than this supposed belief, which is every single glass blade, every single beetle, every single elephant, every single human being, every single dinosaur goes back to not an ancestral pair, but one single cell.
Well, yeah, but there's a fundamental difference between these two ideas. The biggest difference I can see is that scientists are claiming the process of evolution on Earth has happened over billions of years. Meanwhile, the literal interpretation of the Bible suggests that this happened only for 6,000 years from Adam and Eve and 4,000 years from Noah. Evolution and descent will only produce major changes after a large period of time since this process is so gradual. So how then, for example, can Adam and Eve produce multiple different people of multiple different races and cultures in only a few thousand years? It's not possible. According to science, the amount of time allotted is simply too little.
So if you are to ridicule our belief, then you should also use that same criteria to look at your own belief.
We actually do that. Ideas must be peer-reviewed and scrutinized before they are accepted. So let's go through a few things that would disprove the idea that all man came from two people. First, genetic variety. Like I mentioned earlier, the amount of variation we have from our genes is simply too vast to have come from two people over the course of a few thousand years. In order for this to actually occur, we would have to see a mutation rate much higher than anything we've ever observed. Second, a lack of genetic diversity. A species is considered endangered when there aren't many members left. A few hundred members of a population would earn it an endangered status. This is because any disaster, predator, or disease could easily wipe out the entire population. Let's say a population was hit with a deadly disease. If the genetics of the population were diverse, then members that are resistant to the disease would survive and natural selection can do its thing. However, if the genes are not diverse, then the disease could kill all the members and the species would go extinct. The lower the amount of members in the species, the more endangered it is due to how much lower the variety of genetics is. So how then can Adam and Eve with two members of their species survive? The only answer I can really think of is that there was some sort of divine intervention, which honestly is just a cop-out answer.
And secondly, we have empirical evidence of ants which there's millions of ants living in a colony who are all brothers and sisters, and they all come from one ancestral ant.
Well, that's just the queen. There are multiple fathers, so that example doesn't hold up unless there's only one father for the entire ant colony. Plus, in each colony, we don't observe different races of ants with huge variations in their genetics like we see for human beings.
So if we're going to talk about empiricism, if we're going to talk about rationality, if we're going to talk about these things, then the door swings both ways.
It does swing both ways, but one side has already stood the test of scrutiny with modern science. I wonder which side that is.